And good morning. It's almost 2 minutes after the hour 6:02 Tuesday morning, 28th of December, 40th night, 3 below and 6 below on Friday night. Back on the job, thanks to Julie Hayden, Chuck Bonnewell, George Brockler. Thanks for doing a good job and filling in. And this is the obligatory end of the year most admired person list has come out, and the most admired man and woman in the world are Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton. The top three men are Barack Obama, George Bush, and Bill Clinton. I figured that's one, go figure. I don't get any of this stuff. So we're doing the least admired. And last night on Chris Matthews' Hardball program, Chris Matthews makes a call for Barack Obama to release his original long-form hospital-generated birth certificate to put to rest any doubts about the president's constitutional eligibility. Before we play that, I want to get Jerry Corsi here. Doc, good morning. Thanks for coming back on the show. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Peter. Great to be back with you.
Yeah, thanks. Now, I've watched this, and people can watch it on our website. The other two people with him are Clarence Page of the Tribune, who is a, quote, progressive columnist, and David Corn of Mother Jones. When you say Mother Jones, I think you've said it all. But some of the things they say, they use the newspaper birth announcements, which they say, well, even how these were somehow supplanted years ago. But I was trying to make a point with the audience in the first hour. It was the pro-Obama people that took the birth certificate, or rather took the newspaper announcements and used them first.
Right. I mean, the birth announcements in the newspaper were automatically generated once a certificate or certification of live birth was issued, and it's the grandparents' address.
Sure.
It's not the address where Barack Obama's mother or father ever lived together. And it would have been automatically generated if the grandparents went in and simply gave a statement to the Hawaii Department of Health that the baby was born to the family. So it really proves nothing at all.
No. But then this idea that this is some kind of a long-term conspiracy, they were the ones, the anti-birthers, or as Chris Matthews says, I hate the birthers. Those are the people who used the newspapers before people like yourself and others showed that it wasn't even close, that when those announcements hit the papers, Stanley Ann Dunham was either packed and leaving, or on her way to Seattle.
Well, that's right. And besides, the argument that is being made is a pretty ridiculous argument that someone would have anticipated in advance that this child was going to be president, so they wanted him to have a birth announcement.
Yeah.
No. Look, it's automatically generated. The parents or grandparents would have known there's an advantage to having U.S. citizenship, whether or not you're running for president. It's absolutely foolish to think that the only reason anyone would have wanted to register a birth in Hawaii, even if the baby wasn't born in Hawaii, was so that he could become president.
Yeah.
That's just
insane.
A straw man argument that is being presented so they can knock it down and then make the birthers look foolish for an argument nobody ever made.
Thank you. And then they go on to the long form and how it's accepted to get a passport. And I think, well, the other thing, one of the 30 things that have been suppressed is the president's passport records, up to and including when they do show a passport, they pixel it. And this was done by the White House.
Also, the records that we do have of Barack Obama's mother make it clear that when she was in Indonesia, she did file a passport application change to have Barack Obama, the child, removed from her passport. She crossed out, as you would to do, to indicate he was an Indonesian citizen, and she listed his Indonesian surname, Barack Obama Soebarka, which we've never heard
that
of
name
before.
That's right.
Now, if Barack Obama became an Indonesian citizen, that would compromise his status as a natural-born citizen, even if he didn't choose to do it. Because remember, you don't choose where you're born. This is not a question of what you choose. It's your status at birth or your subsequent status as a U.S. citizen, which can be compromised by becoming a citizen of another country.
Now, we'll play this, everybody, but listen to Matthews. He is now calling for Obama to release his original long-form hospital-generated birth certificate to put to rest any doubts about the eligibility. And on Hardball last night, he says, I'm not a birther. I'm an enemy of the birthers. But he continues with these questions. I want one listener in particular to hear this. Why doesn't the president just send me a copy now? Why doesn't Gibbs and Axelrod say, let's get this crappy story dead? Why not do it? If it exists, why not pull out? Now, we'll play the whole thing. You can, with Jerry's on hold, This was Chris Matthews last night. You can see the entire video on our website, KHOW.com.
David Corn is Washington Bureau Chief for Mother Jones, and Clarence Page is, of course, with the Chicago Tribune. Gentlemen, of course you are. Let's go to this. A new poll out this year, just to make sure everybody knows why this is still an issue. A New York Times poll that came out this past April asked, do you think Barack Obama was born in the U.S. or was he born in some other country? Well, never forget this number. 58% say he was born in the U.S. Just 58%, a majority, but less than 3 out of 5 are willing to say he was born here. 20% said he was definitely born somewhere else, and 23% said they don't know, which leaves the president in somewhat odd position since he is our chief executive in a job that requires being born in this country. Again, only 58% agree that he was born here. Now the governor of Abercrombie, the newly elected Democratic governor who grew up and lived with Obama's parents and knew him when he was growing up as a kid, believes it's time to end this nonsense. So let me ask you, gentlemen, why don't, and I am not a birther, I am an enemy of the birthers. This is an actual birth certificate, a long-form certificate of live birth in the state of Hawaii. This, on the other hand, is what they release generally to the public, a thinner form. I'm not sure if it has less information, but it's digital, of course. Doesn't have signatures on it. And to the birthers is evidence he really ain't one of us. Clarence, is this going to help if we get more documentation? And second question, why has the president himself not demanded that they put out the initial documents already?
The president's got more important things to do. Thank goodness that he's more focused on that. Governor Abercrombie himself says that and points out that it is he, the governor, who's bringing this issue up because he was a classmate of Obama's parents. He saw Obama as a baby, and he is tired of people literally lambasting Obama's parents for no good reason. And so he wants to try to put this to rest. Of course, it won't work because the birthers aren't interested in evidence that Obama was born a U.S. citizen. They only want to hear evidence that he was not, and that's not going to happen.
Well, what about going to that 20% or 23% we showed in the New York Times poll that doesn't know? They just want evidence. Is that a group that has a right to get more documentation? And would Abercrombie's position here be the right one? David.
Well, listen, there's enough evidence out there already. There's the certificate that you're holding up, but perhaps even more importantly, there are 2 birth announcements in Honolulu newspapers. Imagine the conspiratorial mind that would have to, at the time of his birth, it was in 1961, plant those things so that one day he could become president of the United States. So there's already plenty of information out there. The 20% who don't know are willfully ignorant. They just don't want to know. And for the 23%, well, I think of that great movie line, you can't handle the truth. I think Neal Abercrombie, who is a great progressive Democrat, I loved him when he was in Congress here in Washington, is basically in a mug's game. There's nothing he's going to do that's going to change any mind of anybody out there who already believes this. I mean, as
but
you
what
said
do you
earlier,
make? Are you saying that 43% of the country is incorrigibly stupid or resistant to truth? Because we've got the poll that shows that only 58% are confident of his birth in this country. So what do you do about those other 43%? I'm just asking you, why isn't Abercrombie on the right trail here to at least go to the 20 or 30%? You can't, obviously the nutcases on the far right who hate this guy aren't going to ever admit that you're right, but why not get to the people who are confused?
You've lost the 23% already. I would just write them off.
What do you mean, 43% of the country is off the list?
No, the 23% who say that they know he wasn't born here.
It's 20,
I would just write them off, send them a holiday card.
Okay, what about the 23? Are they worth going for?
I think the 20% just don't know because they haven't paid enough attention. If they paid enough attention already, the facts that you're holding in your hand would be enough to convince them. They just don't care enough to know, or they think this is where the right wing does a good job. They've created enough of a controversy, even a fake controversy over this, that people who are listening with maybe half an ear say, well, I guess I don't really know because I understand there's some controversy going on here. So that's what's probably brewing with those people.
There's also another answer, which the questionnaire apparently did not include, and that's the don't care crowd. A lot of those people who don't know don't care enough to look deeper into it because it's just not relevant to their lives compared to other things they want from the president right now, like helping to turn the economy around.
Well, let me tell you what I think is new here, and you're both reporters, and you can tell me if I'm right. I think the mere fact that a newly elected governor of Hawaii, his home state, and it is his home state, I completely agree with you, has begun this effort. Now everybody on the right knows he's begun the effort. Every news person knows it. You guys know it. I know it. So we're going to be paying out, maybe out of the corner of our eye for the next couple weeks. How's Abercrombie doing on his expedition to find the original document with signatures all over it, like all our birth certificates, like this one here, that somebody who was born at the same one day before has all kinds of signatures on it. It's an actual photostat. Don't we want to know if he can find it? And I don't understand why the governor doesn't just say, snap it up, who's ever over there in the Department of Records, send me a copy right now. And why doesn't the president just say, send me a copy right now? Why doesn't Gibbs and Axelrod say, let's just get this crappy story dead? Why not do it?
The president doesn't care. And
he doesn't care that 43% of the country isn't sure he's an American.
Look, Chris, that copy that you've got there, the copy that the president has provided on the web, is all you need if you're a Hawaiian to get a passport. Everybody accepts that birth certificate as proof of his citizenship, except the birthers. I don't blame him for just ignoring the crowd.
So this is the same document which would be adequate if, say, you wanted to join the CIA.
Absolutely, or to get a passport or anything else. That is proof of his birth in Hawaii.
And one question here is that the governor has asked for more information. He hasn't said it has to be the long form that you're holding there for somebody else. So if he comes up with other information that is not exactly a long form, will that satisfy or change anybody's view on this?
But the department out there just said the other day that there is such a thing. It exists. The original document of his birth is available in storage. They have it in storage, they say. Well, and if it exists, why not put it out? I'm just asking the obvious question, why not? Will there be any harm done by releasing the original document?
I would take the brave position of saying that if they can find it, they should put it out there, and then we can make even more fun of the birthers.
I'll take the brave position of saying, yeah, put it out there, and the birthers are still not going to believe it. They're going to say, well, that governor is part of the conspiracy, too, because he's a Democrat.
Why did it take so long?
Well, you guys are, you know what, you're all dead right. So let's agree, 3-0.
Break for traffic.
Beginning.
You can see that on our website, khow.com. And you heard Matthew say what he said. We'll come back with Jerry Corsi after traffic, 630 KHOW. Traffic time or Susan? It's 20 after the hour 6. Jerry Corsi with us. Our website, khow.com. You see that Chris Matthews released Obama's birth certificate. All right, so I'm sure, Jerry, knowing you as well as I do, that you have seen that and listened to it prior to that. It's really interesting. My sense of it is, before I turn it over to you, that this story, there is a crescendo building. The drumbeat gets louder, and Matthews has to bring these two guys on, Page and Korn, to do everything they can to destroy the argument, including not even legitimatizing the argument. What did you hear or watch when you listened to Matthews and his colleagues?
Well, the same thing you're stating, Peter, and that is that I wrote about it this morning. It'll be in WorldNet Daily tomorrow. Take a look at the WND. We basically, the argument about where's Obama's long-form hospital-generated birth certificate is catching hold with a greater number of the American people. People are saying, why can't we see it? Mm-hmm. And here comes Chris Matthews out to try to
blunt it, yeah, sure.
Yeah, just to blunt it. But yet at the end he agrees, and the other two reluctantly agree that we should see the long-form birth certificate. I called out to Governor Abercrombie's office yesterday. This is the substance of my article in WND for tomorrow. Abercrombie, the governor, has given interviews in the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, CNN, the Star Advertiser in Honolulu. They refused to give an interview to WND.
Sure, of course.
So, they're going to, they basically, I think, Abercrombie just added fuel to the fire, because now he's on the record as saying that the state needs to release more information about Obama's nativity story in Hawaii, which is, growing evidence to me that the story is gaining legs.
I agree.
And that, Obama will not long be able to dodge this issue.
Totally.
But Abercrombie thought he was going to give Obama cover. He ended up doing exactly the opposite. He put the issue of where's the long-form hospital-generated birth certificate on center stage with national attention.
And Matthews, like I said, we have invited Matthews on this radio show many times. He doesn't return calls. I would, in fact, invite all three at once on. I think it would be fun. And just say, can you explain, this whole notion that fringes around the birth certificate that just says when is African a race? If you can tell me when that is, maybe we can begin a legitimate discussion. But that's the Chris Matthews defense, and the defense is, well, you wouldn't believe it anyhow.
Well, that short form certification of live birth does not prove anything.
No, of course not.
In Hawaii, in fact, even today in Hawaii, you have laws for going in to get a certification of live birth in Hawaii for someone who's not born there. Families can claim someone born in Hawaii.
Sun Yat-sen.
Hawaii gave a birth certificate to Sun Yat-sen, who was the Chinese nationalist leader, because he wanted to be able to say he wasn't born in China, and he got people to give testimony that he was born in Hawaii. Hawaii issued him a birth certificate. Getting a birth certificate issued in Hawaii, a certification of live birth, proves nothing. It's only the hospital-generated long form. And, Peter, I think it also, most of the articles who were picking up on Abercrombie's comments, including the Times and several of the others, were pointing out that Lieutenant Colonel Lakin has brought the story to national attention.
Indeed.
And he is now in Leavenworth, serving 6 months for his refusal to obey orders to go to Afghanistan on the charge that the president was Barack Obama is not eligible to be commander-in-chief. WorldNet Daily, by the way, will publish a book authored by Lieutenant Colonel Lakin. If you can get that word through to the family, we appreciate it.
Consider it done.
And all they have to do is get in touch with me, and I'll begin to work it and set it up. We would love to be able to tell, WND would love to be able to tell Lieutenant Colonel Lakin's story in book form.
Yeah, it was interesting when Lakin was sentenced, the total lack of journalistic responsibility up and down the Front Range from the newspapers, television stations, a lot of pressure. They covered it the day of the beginning of the trial, and they covered it at him being found guilty. But not one reporter, either television, radio. In fact, I played our own KOA, that the reporter at KOA on the air claimed that Lakin said that he was not born in this country. I said, none of that's true. He never made any of those claims. But that's what the reporters spit out. And at the same time, not one person probed why Lakin was saying what he was saying, just that the birther colonel was found guilty and sentenced. That's, in the words of my father, that's just piss poor. And yet it was accepted, it was allowed, and we drive on. Matthews and these other two guys, they're feeling the heat. And Matthews, who used to say that the proof was in the newspaper announcements, of course, if you and so many others, good, interesting, probing journalists, have proven she wasn't there. And how you can get those, and the birth announcements themselves are lies.
Well, Abercrombie, the governor, is also lying when he says that he was in social settings with Barack Obama.
I was going to ask you about that.
Because, this is again a lie. Abercrombie would have had to have flown to Seattle to visit Ann Dunham and Barack Obama, the baby, Jr., Barack Obama. Within 3 weeks, when the baby was born, Ann Dunham.
What does he claim? Does he claim he knew her, did he know Gramps and Toot, or does he claim that he knew Stanley Ann and Barack Sr.?
Well, he says they were his friends.
Yeah, I heard him,
He was in social settings with the baby Barack Obama and the mother and the father.
Well, they couldn't have been.
Well, it was not possible.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It's a lie.
Yeah.
We're going to call him on that, and we're going to say, at WND, we're saying, look, this whole issue is not documented.
No, they were never there together.
They were never there.
That's right. I mean, when is it possible he met Barack when he was a little boy? Sure, but Stanley M's in Jakarta.
Would have had to have been in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, or less.
Because if Neal Abercrombie was with Barack Obama Sr., Ann Dunham, and Barack Obama Jr., that would have had to have been before 1962.
How old is Abercrombie?
Abercrombie is 72 years old.
All right.
And he is of the age to have been kind of a senior to Barack Obama, really a contemporary of Barack Obama Sr., the father.
Did he go to the same school?
I believe he did go to the University of Hawaii. I'd have to double-check on that. But they knew each other at the university, and it's clear that Abercrombie knew Barack Obama Sr. But again, Abercrombie even says in one of the articles he gave to the interviews to the Chicago Tribune that when he saw Barack Obama Sr. years later in Africa, Barack Obama Sr. never even asked about Ann Dunham or Barack Obama Jr. I think Neal Abercrombie is also a member of this Democratic Socialists of America, a very leftist political party that he's affiliated with and worked with very actively. He's been a diehard supporter of Barack Obama. You'll remember Neal Abercrombie is also, when he was in the House, was the one who presented that letter from President Obama to Kapiolani Hospital saying that Barack Obama was born in Kapiolani. Of course, there's a controversy there because earlier the family claimed Barack Obama was born at Queens Medical Center.
Right.
And the letter that Neal Abercrombie presented turned out not to be the original letter, but a digital version of the letter. It's unclear to me whether the hospital has the original letter, but just that Barack Obama wrote a letter to the hospital and says he was born there does not prove he was.
It just gets more curiouser and more curiouser. Matthews does this on intent, but I don't think he helped anybody, which is pretty standard for these defenders. Every time they say something, there's a hole in it big enough to drive another truck through it. So, but he does say, well, it's time for the president to release his original long-form hospital-generated birth certificate, and he says this new governor can do so, and now they've painted themselves in a corner. I wondered how the governor would have known Senior and Stanley Ann, given that they never lived together. She had quit school.
I think that's all a lie. I think
right.
I think what Neal Abercrombie's trying to do is provide cover for Barack Obama. My guess is that the White House knows this is a losing issue.
Okay.
And that, basically Chris Matthews was out there again trying to provide cover. But now everybody, after Abercrombie came on and he said he was going to release new information about Obama's nativity story in Hawaii, they're kind of cornered. I mean, okay, so what's the new information?
Yep.
Let's see the long-form hospital-generated birth certificate. And now that they've said, Abercrombie has said, and Matthews is on record saying we ought to see this long-form birth certificate, why not produce it?
I'll talk to you in the morning. Let's see where this turns to. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Dr. Jerry Corsi back right after this on 630 KHW. Traffic, Susan.